brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Oh, these brothers my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice.
This is Paul Spheric Reptiles, and I thank y'all for tuning in to this video. I'm here with Danny Cadenas with Chain Reaction Exotics, and definitely a great friend, a great mentor for me. But I really wanted to ask him some questions that I've seen in a lot of social media posts, whether it's on Instagram or on YouTube, and people just asking questions in the comment section, and just to see how he feels. So, and I'm not going to ask about the state of the ball python market. We know we're in a recession. I mean, it is what it is. Luxury items are pretty much the way that they are. But my question for you is, if you could go back and start over, knowing the information that you know now to right now, so how would you change things?
If I go back and do it all over again, well, one, I would have bought a well, they didn't have 5540s back then, but I would have bought a 5040 and before the 7030. I would have probably bought a few more females than males as we did, because we got caught up a little bit, because when you first get in, you're like, oh, this and that. And well, here's the male. Let's go and buy the female. And, so we started off a little bit, and then I linked up with JT from Retrochip, and we were doing a lot of talking, and he gave me some good advice. I was like, hey, buy your females, grow up your females. And I was like, well, I already got a couple males. And he's like, yeah, by the time that female is old, old enough, because you probably get the male at a better price. But other than that, oh man, yeah, the setup probably would have got into the rodent breeding a little sooner.
Right.
We waited until, I guess, we didn't have the LLCs, so I was keeping track from the beginning. I've got a running spreadsheet of every single expenditure, but I wasn't paying that close attention to it because I was like, well, I'm not paying taxes. But once we did that, and I realized, wow,
how much you actually spent.
Holy crap, this is how much is going into this. And then I saw how much was going into the rodents.
Mm-hmm.
I was told, and I was like, man, we should have done this 2 years ago, and we could have saved so much more money and put that money into other things. So right. I would have started breeding rodents a lot sooner. If you've only got 5 or 10 snakes, got it, cool. But once you start getting to 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, you might want to start breeding some rodents if you have that available. If you can. If you can't, cool. Or if if you can afford to spend that much on frozen thawed, by all means, hey, cool. But it was, I couldn't justify spending the amount that we were on frozen thawed. So yeah, maybe a few more females, different rack, breeding rodents a little bit sooner.
Right.
But other than that, I wouldn't change much. Obviously you always want to look at your projects and maybe I should have bought into this, or maybe I should have started doing that. But at the end of the day, when we got into it, we were working with the genes that we love, the stuff that we want to work with. We never chased anybody's dreams. And I always tell people, don't ever chase anybody, because by the time you're chasing them, when you make what they're making, you're already behind. You're still 5 years behind them, because guess what? They're already making something else, and it's just a spiral that you don't want to go down. So I wouldn't really change anything in that nature, because we're working with the genes we want to. It may take us a little bit longer to get to certain projects or goals that we want to, but at the same time, we're still making cool stuff, So.
Right. Well, I mean, that definitely makes sense. If you look at the cost of buying rodents, then you'll see that rodent breeding is the most economical way to do it. Because one thing I want you guys to understand is that there's a cost to everything that you do.
Yep.
Period. So if you have, no matter what type of animals you're caring for, but when it comes to snakes, people like to say that they're an inexpensive animal, and they truly are. Like if you rate them on a scale compared to dogs and cats and other things that you could have as pets and raise and breed, but the cost of the cost of a rodent, like I said before, guys, if you live somewhere like in Dallas, Fort Worth, we only have one dedicated reptile store. So your average rodent is about $4.50. I am currently spending about $100 a week on feeders. And that's just the live feeders. Now, frozen thawed, I've already ordered those and we have them. And for the snakes that eat them, that's great. But half of my snakes don't go that way. So I have a cost for frozen thaw, which I'm racing to feed. So that because of the way that they're shipped, they aren't pressure sealed or vacuum sealed like in the video before where Danny showed how he actually, prepares his rodents. But I also have that live cost too. So it's so additive. And I didn't really think about it until we did our taxes. And I saw that we spent over $5,500 on the rodents. So I guess when you say projects, I
just want to caveat on something you just said too to make it, $100 on live feeders a week, right? So $400 a month,
right?
And then tack on the frozen thawed bill a month, right?
Yep.
So if you watch the previous video where we talked about the expenses for just the 5 rodent racks that we have at about $140 a month.
Exactly.
So that's a huge cost savings right there. Yes, it does cost a little bit to get started. However, if you make the racks yourself, you're going to spend $7 for the cement tubs at Lowe's. The FB15 tubs that I use from Freedom Breeder for the ARS or for the AFS, those are $12 a pop. You go buy some 2x4s, run them. Someone that's got a table, sorry, you got one, split them and make your own 2x2s. And the hardware cloth's not that expensive. So you can, with a little bit of time, you can make them on your own and save yourself a lot of money.
Exactly. And that's what we're looking towards doing. And I'm glad that you shared that. So when it comes to different projects, what's one of the things that leads you to choose a certain direction to go with the project or to enter into a project?
For one thing that intrigues me is what is this ball python going to look like as an adult?
Right.
And you can go back and look at a lot of stuff and go and see all the pictures and all the videos and everything looks great as a hatchling.
Exactly.
Everything comes crawling out of the egg, it looks amazing.
Right.
But then there's some stuff as an adult that it looks like a brown out turd. Or it's like, it looks cool, but it doesn't look
but that's the truth.
Yeah, but it doesn't look as cool as it did as a hatchling. So what can we produce that's going to look cool as a hatchling? So
right.
I like working with the genes that me and Anna love to work with.
Right.
Orange Dream, Black Pastel, the Yellow Belly Complex is great. Trojan, we Clown, Desert Ghost, but all that stuff works good together. But how's it going to look? Like you take Pastel Hypo for example.
Right. Good example.
That is probably it's a good example. It's an inexpensive thing, but it looks amazing as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can start layering, Desert Ghost and certain things up on that. But I want to make stuff that looks good as an adult. I'm not going to chase anybody's stuff. So we look at certain projects and like, okay, cool. They're working with that. You know what? I'm going to work with this. Like Trojan, for example.
Right.
I'm figuring out different things with what works with Trojan. Yeah, there's Trojan clowns and Trojan trick clowns and, Trojan Desert Ghosts. That's cool. But all right, well, you know what? I want to see what other stuff does it. So I started plugging the Yellow Belly Complex into it. And I ended up with that.
Right.
The Inchy Gravel Trojan and the Inchy Fire Gravel Trojan. And those things look phenomenal.
Yeah,
so it's like,
amazing,
all right, well,
the difference.
What's gonna happen with a Super Gravel Trojan or a Super Gravel Super Trojan with that high blushing and those, and then you start layering on Black Pastel and Orange Dream
and just
into
takes
those
the color
things,
palette,
and then
totally
the
different
recesses will flow in there because we're gonna plug some double head clown pied stuff into that. But you've seen the Orange Dream Inchy Trojans that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And like I want to throw another dose of Orange Dream into that, and then let's put some Black Pastel and some Yellow Belly and see what it does to that color palette. There's a lot. There's so much room to grow in this industry. And there's so much that can be done. You just got to put your mind to it and do a little bit of creativity. And
That's so true. That's more or less what we're trying to do too. And that's I thank you so much for sharing that. One of the ways that we at Spheric Reptiles, what we do is, so we have our plans, and one of the things that I'll use is the Morph Market genetic calculator, and I'll go through and I'll just plug stuff in that we're trying to do to see if it's ever been created. Now, if it's been created, then you can check on the box in the calculator, and you can actually see an example of that. So it helps with your identification of it. Also, check out Flawless Exotics and with Will, and he definitely goes over the gene series on how to recognize what you're looking at. So I recommend you guys to actually look at that. But looking at that genetic calculator to see what the snakes looks like, because if you're trying to create things that you really, really are going to enjoy producing, or like, because we don't really make anything, we assist the animals in making it. I know that that's something that we always throw around, but when we say we make it, what we mean to say is that we put the animals together under the right conditions at the right time, and we facilitate them producing the eggs they make the offspring. But it's all because of what we put together. So,
yeah.
But what about the market as a whole? Not the market, but do you see the breeders that are getting into the ball python industry as those that are more likely to stay now versus those that got in during COVID?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. There's a lot of them that came in during COVID that are getting out.
Right.
A lot of people saw the prices and the money that was being made by certain, breeders, and were like, hey, I can go in this and I'm going to make some money. But a lot of them then you get into it and you're like, oh, well, no. They didn't see it as a hobby. They saw it as a business. And, well, now I've got to feed and I've got to do this and this is the cost and everything. And I'm not seeing a return on my investment. It's like, dude, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Exactly. You're not going to get into this, yes, maybe if you come in with a whole bunch of money and buy a lot of investment animals or something, you can do something like that. But if you're your average Joe coming in saying, all right, I want to buy, some ball pythons up, you're going to grow them up. It's for a few years and you're going to breed. There's a lot of costs that go involved with that. Right. Don't plan on seeing anything your first few years, because and look at it in terms of a hobby. If you're going this full blown business investing, you got people, that's fine. That's a different avenue. But, from 2020 until now, we dropped, from 2020 through 2023, we dropped 30 grand. Well, about 28. So I think it was like 28,000 and some change. Mm-hmm. And we've seen about 19 of that back. This past year was, we did some holdbacks, but, we did almost 10,000 in sales this past year, which is a good year compared to the other ones. The other ones was like 4.5, 4.8, somewhere around there. So that was pretty good, but we're still, guess what? We spent almost 10 grand doing the upgrade in the rotor room. They all saw in the last video, doing the insulation, putting in the mini split. And then guess what? We'd be picking up another ARS rack. So that's another $2,500 expense that we're going to do in April. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to come in with the right mind frame. But as far as breeders sticking in and getting out versus COVID versus now, I think the ones that are coming in now are coming in at a good time. One, because the market's low. So you can come in, you can buy some really good animals for a really good price. However, is the market going to come back? Yes. When is it going to come back? We don't know. Right. Could it be a year? Could it be 2 years? Could it be 3 years? Could this be the stable state of the market for, a while? Could be. We don't know. There's a lot that dictates that going forward. So it could go away. I think the breeders that are getting in now probably have a better chance of staying in than the ones that came in COVID.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah, just because the way the market is. However, they still need to look at it and say, okay, what is my 3 and my 5 year plan?
Right.
And don't come in thinking, oh, well, guess what? I'm going to get into this now because the market's low. I'm going to buy all these big time animals because everyone's making this, this, and this. I'm going to buy all the stuff so I can make everything that they're making. Well, guess what?
Right.
There's 1,000 other people that are doing the
same
same thing. So if you come in with that mindset, you're going to end up being one of those breeders from the COVID era that says, well, crap, now I've got, I'm sitting on all these hatchlings or these other snakes and I'm not making as much money or any money because you're competing with 100 or 1,000 other people that are selling the same thing that you're doing. And you need to be prepared to house, take care, feed those snakes while you're trying to sell them.
Right.
If not, you're going to get frustrated, and we see it all the time. You see on Instagram, my collection's up for sale. My collection's up for sale. This collection's up for sale.
I've seen.
And
like, it's like twice a week, right? Twice a week you see something like that.
And I think for some of them, it's not a lack of passion for the animals. Some of them it is. Some of them they wanted to get into it because they thought they could make some money. Some of them really love their animals, and they followed on hard times.
Right.
And right now, it's hard times with everybody. The economy is shit right now, and hey, it is what it is. Some people have to make some really hard choices, and at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. But if you can stick it out and just, all right, you know what, and plan, hey, you know what, this next breeding season, guess what, you know what, I might only do X amount of pairings and concentrate on holdbacks and projects that I want to do versus, I just want to make X amount of clutches because I can put that on Instagram and say, look what I made. Guess what? You still got to house them and feed them while you're selling them. And unless you're going to a lot of shows, or marketing yourself and selling on Morph Market or
however you sell them.
However,
shows, whatever.
It's, like I still got a handful, maybe 6 or 7 left over from last year that, hopefully will, push them out at this next Repticon show at the first weekend of March. But they'll all be gone eventually before the new babies start coming in. But that's, one thing that you got to think about. And I think some people can get ahead of themselves.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And, that's why I always say research. So that goes a lot of different ways. So research what you're getting into, the cost, and then if you don't plan to succeed, you're planning to fail, right? I know that's cliche, but that's the truth. Just like in your own personal life, if your finances are good, it's because it's done by purpose. If your finances are bad, it's probably because you just threw caution to the wind and just said, it's going to work. Well, the truth of the matter is when you start feeding animals and taking care of animals and holding them and doing all the things that it takes to have a healthy animal, then you need to plan for that, guys. And that's one of the things that I always say, plan, research, then research and plan. Once you have something that's in works, stop and give a checkpoint and say, well, how is this working out? How is this going to meet my plan? So pull your plan out, compare the numbers and see if you're moving towards the plan or if you're not. If you're skewing so far away from that plan line, you might need to stop, take a couple of steps back and reconsider. But, as far as the market goes, I don't know if the ball python market will ever get to where it was during COVID, because before COVID,
I don't think it will.
Only those high-end animals were expensive. So I know in the pet trade, you just didn't have the same amount of pattern variability like you had post-COVID, like you have right now. So right now, you could probably get a single gene animal for about, as far as a ball python, for about like $50 plus shipping. And if you catch an auction, you might be able to get it for $35. But either way, that's very inexpensive for a single gene incomplete dominant. You could even get single gene recessive for about $100 to $200. So
Which is crazy.
during COVID, that was unheard of.
I
So
don't think any ball python should be sold for under $100, to be honest with you.
there's something that you said, like you don't think that any ball python should be sold for under $100. And I agree, guys. And let me tell you why. And I know some of y'all are like, oh, you just want to charge a lot for snakes.
Nope.
No. But here's the thing that I've seen. When it comes to animals that we keep as pets, it seems like the less you pay for something, the lower you actually consider it
Lower your standards.
a worthwhile pet. But the more money you throw at the pet, like let's take dogs. If you go out and you buy a $5,000 Doberman, then that Doberman, you're not going to let anything happen to that because you spent $5,000 on it. But if you spend $50 on a Doberman, it's like, I spent $50. And that is the wrong way to think. But I feel like a lot of people,
That's a good point.
a lot of people treat animals according to how much they spend on them. But to me, one of my favorite animals, and you'll check out the short when I had Big Mama. Big Mama is one of my favorite animals. And even though I tried to see if she would go for me this year, and she didn't, I was like, hey, that's it. I'm never going to pay her again. She's my pet. Now, when you mentioned animals actually going and things like that, when people actually, like, you'll sell your animals, one of the things that we can do to create better products that have a higher marketability or higher sellability is to look at what's on the market right now. Don't, like you said before, don't create something that someone else is creating. Go out on a limb and try to create something or help assist create something on your own, because you're more likely to be successful if you're the only one with that pattern morph or that combination of genes in a pattern than someone that's like, so if you want to make an exotic clown, which are beautiful and I want
Gorgeous.
but if you go that route, there's a lot of people shooting in that direction. Find some of the genes that are rare and shoot in that direction. I mean, what do you have to lose? And it'll reduce the number of animals that you have to make. It'll reduce the number of animals that you have to care for so you can provide better care. Is there anything else that you could say about the ball python industry, or like just any insight that you can give new breeders like myself or up and coming breeders too?
I guess at the end of the day, work with the genes that you want to work with. I say this a lot to a lot of people. Work with the genes that you want to work with. The ones that you look at and say, man, that is a badass looking snake. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. As long as when you produce something, when it looks out and you look at it and say, damn, that's what I was hoping for. Sweet, I got it. That's what matters.
Yep.
If you think it looks badass, guess what? Somebody else is going to think it looks badass, and they're going to want it too. But like Paul said, don't just work with the direction you want to work with. Don't chase what other people are doing. If you like what someone else is doing and that's what you really want to do, cool, go for it. I'm not saying not to. Go for it.
Right.
But don't base your projects off what other people are doing just because, oh, they're making this and, oh, man, look what they're selling it for, and that's what I want to do. Because you're going to dig yourself in a hole, and it's not going to end up well for you.
It's not.
But work with the stuff that you want to work with. If you think a gene is cool and someone else doesn't, who gives a crap? You think it's cool. Work with it.
Yeah.
And think about it. It's an art project. Think about what can I layer onto this that it's going to make it look better. How's it going to look as an adult? And you might do a couple of breedings and then they start getting to be sub-adults and you're like, oh, well, that doesn't look as well. Okay, well, what can I add to it or what can I change? And then go from there.
Right.
There's so much to be done in this hobby with so many, the genetics are crazy. So many different morphs out there that you can work with. And there's a lot that people aren't working with. Or there's a lot of directions that people aren't going. Justin's been doing this for 20 years and he's still figuring stuff out with stuff. Same with Bob and Josh and all these other guys, they're still figuring stuff out. Shoot, Bob and Josh do partnered pairings with each other because they're like, man, you got something that I don't have, or you got something we could put together that we haven't done yet. Mm-hmm. There's so much to do out there that people aren't. Put your mind to work, use your imagination, and go for it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I think the reason why I wanted to do this video with Danny is because a lot of the times in this industry, as in a lot of other industries, you can get, just so keyed in on yourself. You don't look at the big picture, or you don't do a great self-analysis of what you're doing. Well, this is just like a soundboard for you guys. So imagine it to be like that, so that you're hearing things that could actually help you to be a little bit better, maybe, or maybe not so much, or maybe a whole lot. But either way, like I said before, this channel is just dedicated to the success of everybody. Now, if you see something that you like, let us know. If you think that you got something better, let us know, because the ball python market, well, the reptile market in the U.S. is only 3% of all U.S. households that have pets. So
Think about it.
That's not a whole lot. So even if there's 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 ball pythons on the market, in the case of ball pythons, there's over 320, 330, 340 million people in America. So 50,000 compared to that is nothing. So whenever people say that there's too many, there's not too many. It's just we need to look in different ways to be successful. And that's all I'm trying to get everybody to do. Be successful at something. If you choose to breed ball pythons, try to be successful in whatever way you think success is. So,
and and another thing is help each other out.
Exactly.
Help each other out. There's a lot of negativity out there, not just in this hobby, but in every industry. So don't be that way. Help each other out. If somebody reaches out for advice, give them some advice.
Give them the advice.
Too many times you see people asking, or they'll post something on a reptile page on, Facebook or whatever, and there's always the one know-it-all or asshole that comes out and just bashes them and belittles them. And you know what? That might be a freaking 16-year-old kid asking a question. Guess what? Those kids are the future of this hobby.
Exactly.
So if you start bashing them or anybody, and then you're pushing them in the wrong direction when you should be, hey, pick them up, help them out. What do you need? Hey, you know what? Hey, your setup or whatever, hey, whether you change this or do this or recommend this, and help them out. But there's so much bashing and bickering and stuff that goes on out there. And
yeah, that's
like I always tell you, at the end of the day, we are all reptile nerds.
Right. We're just nerds.
That's all we are. We should all be just picking each other up, helping each other out. And, just, I don't know. That's one thing that drives me crazy, is a lot of the bickering and backstabbing and cutthroating that goes on. And it's a small percentage. Right. Or maybe it's bigger than a small. I don't know. But it's out there, and it doesn't need to be.
Right. I mean, I really wish that it would stop, because back when I first got into it in the early 90s, mid 90s, everybody was great. Like I said before, it didn't matter where you came from, socioeconomic background, ethnicity. You could jump in the reptile arena, and everybody was like, "Oh, great, let me help you." It wasn't like, "Oh no, you're doing it wrong or you're doing it right." It was, "No, let me help you." And so I just really encourage that, just to help people to care for these animals, because the worst thing that we can do, and people don't really talk about this, is have all these animals and get to a point where you just can't keep them, right? And then so what happens to the animals? And that's a question that I always ask. And I know what can happen to the animals, so because I know about dogs. I know a lot about dogs, and I don't want that to happen to the snakes that people don't want. So that's why I'm so encouraging and trying to put out information to help people, hey, if you got to breed rodents and you got to, euthanize them humanely and then freeze them, in order to do it, let's make sure that you can do it. So I'm going to do the best I can to put links in here in the description to tell you where you can get all the equipment, because I too have to get the equipment. But But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, let's just try to have fun too and be uplifting. That's why I came down to see Danny and his wife and his family, and I brought, you know, Lynn came with me. We've had a great time all day. Had a couple of drinks, so if I seem a little bit like I'm a little tired, and you know, hey, shit, it happens, man. When you drink beer all day, and I love beer, and then you eat good food and you're around great people, you know, it's a great day. Guys, thanks again. Please like and comment and subscribe for this video, and that way we can know what you think. But if nothing else, guys, like I always say, enjoy the time that you have with your reptiles and enjoy the time that you have with your family. All right, thanks, guys.